So, I've already made mention of how I reckon that Liam Lawson is New Zealand's gift to the motor racing world, in the same way that the Holden Monaro was Australia's gift to the world motoring industry. Right now, it's all we can afford to ship out. Part of the Red Bull Junior team, and achieving results left, right and centre at least before that bloody video jinxed him, I painted him out to be a driver that a whole nation has been waiting decades for. It sounds a little exaggerated, but motorsport is a little bit expensive in this country. Pretty much unaffordable to almost all of us, even at a grassroots level. You can add that to the list of stuff in this country which is regarded as unaffordable. I also mentioned in that video that a dude by the name of Brendon Hartley wasn't someone that I was totally sold on as a Formula 1 driver. I thought of him more as a GT specialist rather than a Grand Prix master, but he was a Formula 1 driver for a little bit. And while his luck wasn't totally great, he didn't exactly set the world alight. But then I got around to thinking, was I too harsh on this guy? And since I'm too chicken shit to comment on that ballet of carbon fiber from 2 weeks ago, I might as well look back and seek an answer to the question, what happened to Brendon Hartley in Formula 1? And seeing as how this is a driver profile video done by me, we're going back to the very beginning, of course. Hartley's first year of racing came in the New Zealand Formula First Championship, as you do here in Aotearoa. Competing with Jeb Motorsport, Hartley would finish 8th in the championship, in amongst a sea of drivers that you've never heard of before. Not that this deterred him from progressing to Formula Ford for the next season, getting 6 wins that season. Hartley would finish runner-up in the standings behind Tim Edgell, which wasn't too bad an effort. 2 years in the Toyota Racing Series also fostered a few wins and decent overall finishes. But where Hartley really wanted to go was over to Europe, to try and make a run for the Formula 1 circuit. And in his first season of Formula Renault in 2006, it seemed like that shit was never gonna happen. Sure, he put on some good performances that year, but teammate John Edwards certainly didn't make it easy for him. It didn't seem that Hartley was delivering anything indicative of a Formula 1 caliber driver, but it was in this year that Hartley was signed to the Red Bull Junior team, an outfit known to be a sort of cauldron of death, where young drivers would go to have their careers squandered. In reality, they offered plenty of opportunities for drivers to get into Formula 1. This was an opportunity for Hartley. What would come of the 2007 season for him? Well, this. Hartley had an awesome year, winning the Euro Cup Formula Renault Series, beating out fellow Red Bull Junior Jaime Alguersuari. There was the slight issue of him being beaten by Red Bull Juniors Alguersuari and Mika Maki in the Italian Formula Renault Championship, but he still won races and came home in 3rd overall that year. There was still a fair amount of accolades, and it did warrant another look at this kid. He probably would have won that series had he been taken for a haircut. And these efforts prompted Red Bull to give him a go in a Formula 1 car at a demo run in Riyadh. They also gave him a proper 3-day test at the Valladolid test track, shaking down that year's Toro Rosso car, which later went on to win the Italian Grand Prix at the hands of the German. All very decent stuff, but Hartley's focus that year was on the British F3 series, which back in those times still actually meant something. He would be teamed up once again with Alguersuari, and with Sebastian Bourdais doing his utmost to help Marco lose the remainder of his hair, it would be imperative that Hartley beat DJ Squire in case a seat became available at Toro Rosso. His season began with a DNF at Alton Park. Not exactly a healthy start to the season, but if it's any consolation, Alguersuari got one too. That was because he crashed into him. Hartley would take a win at Croft, and a string of good performances helped his cause. What didn't help his cause was yet more retirements. There was Croft, where he nerfed himself out of the race. There was Monza, where Walter Grubmiller neglected to give him room. And there was Snetterton, where he deviated from the race lead for a spot of lawn mowing. Despite these less than ideal results, he made a resurgence by winning both races at Thruxton to put himself back in the game. Although Alguersuari had been impressively consistent, and so despite having had a strong second half to the season, it wasn't enough to rein in Alguersuari, who won the title. A positive to take from that year, however, was a podium finish in the Macau Grand Prix, proving to Red Bull that he did still have something in him that did merit a consideration for a Formula 1 drive. For the 2009 season, he would be given the title of reserve and test driver for Scuderia Toro Rosso, but as well as this, he would move over to the Euro F3 series. And this is where I'm going to let you all know that this is where it started to go slightly downhill. Being the sole full-time competitor for Carlin that season, it was a little difficult to gauge his performance, but with only 1 win that year, and it also being one of very few points finishes that year, it didn't look too great. He also ran most of the season in the World Series by Renault series, where, once again, he barely had any results to speak of. I think it's fair to say that it was a tricky season, and it probably wasn't even the worst of it. From July 2009, Hartley would be replaced by Alguersuari as the reserve driver for Toro Rosso, while Hartley would go on to concentrate on his junior racing program. 2 weeks after this move was pulled off, Marco sent Bourdais packing, and Alguersuari was given a full-time F1 drive at Toro Rosso, 2 weeks after being replaced, and that happens. Bummer. So despite this missed opportunity, he was once again appointed as a reserve driver for 2010, albeit still sharing the duties, this time with Ricciardo. But heading into 2010, Hartley's success tally was starting to slant in the wrong direction, especially considering his performance in the junior series compared to Ricciardo. The writing was on the wall, and for Marco, that was enough to tell Hartley to bugger off back to Palmerston North. He was out of the reserve driver role and out of the Red Bull junior team altogether. Since that time, he did complete some testing and simulator work for Mercedes, a good opportunity that unfortunately didn't amount to much outside of that. He found renewed life driving in the endurance categories. More specifically, he found a home with the Porsche Le Mans team in 2014, teaming up with Timo Bernhard and Mark Webber. From 2015 to 2017, he would win 2 World Endurance Championships and won the 2017 24 Hour of Le Mans alongside Bernhard and Earl Bamber. It all seemed to be going well until September that year, when a situation had arisen at the Toro Rosso Formula 1 team. Their driver lineup was in a spot of bother, and because Pierre Gasly was over in Japan, they were in need of a new driver for the United States Grand Prix. He still had Marco's number, and Marco needed a driver. It. Let's just call him.
Hello? Who is this?
Hey, this is Brendon.
Who?
Brendon Hartley.
Oh no.
Look, I understand that you guys are in need of a driver this weekend, and just letting you know, I have a super license, and I just came off winning Le Mans. And
Okay, cool. You got the drive. Bye.
Hello?
However it came to be, Hartley was announced to replace Pierre Gasly for the United States Grand Prix, making his Grand Prix debut and becoming the first New Zealander to race in Formula 1 since Mike Thackwell back in 1984. He would be out-qualified by teammate Daniel Kvyat and would finish behind him in the race too, but it was a solid effort considering he'd been out of a single-seater race car for nigh on to 7 years. And obviously the Red Bull hierarchy thought this too, because they gave Hartley the drive for the remainder of the season. In the next 2 rounds he qualified well, but was struck down in the races with mechanical failures. In the final round at Abu Dhabi, he finished ahead of Gasly to cap off a decent stint for the remainder of 2017. All in all, he didn't burst onto the scene with extremely, massively exhilarating performances, but it was solid enough given everything, and the powers that be thought this too, giving both he and Gasly the Toro Rosso seats for 2018, a Kiwi full-time in Formula 1. Last time that happened? Denny Hulme back in 1974, although Chris Amon was the last to have done the majority of a season back in 1976. That guy had the worst luck of any Grand Prix driver in history. You don't want that shit on your plate. Newly married though, he was on a high that Randy Lanier couldn't even offer him, heading into the Australian Grand Prix to kick off the 2018 season. It wasn't a particularly amazing start to the season, as he knew the car was capable of scoring points, and yet he would finish the first race well down the order, behind Sir Lancelot, who undeniably had a worse car. In Bahrain, however, the Toro Rosso came to life. Gasly qualified in the top 6, and would finish P4 in the Grand Prix, which was a fantastic drive. Hartley, meanwhile, didn't attain as much success. Qualifying in P11 wasn't too shabby, but he found out in Q1 that Red Bull can giveth thy wings, as well as taketh them away. In the race too, he punted Checo Perez at turn 4, gifting him a penalty and throwing him well down the order. As well as this, he received another 30-second penalty for failing to maintain position on the formation lap. He himself acknowledged that he had to do better if he wanted to stay in that seat, and his shenanigans in Shanghai didn't really help matters. Whoever's fault it was, it didn't look great back at TR headquarters. In Azerbaijan, he overcame a start from the back of the grid to take his first points in Formula 1. Although he didn't win many awards for awareness after this close shave with Gasly almost sent the Frenchman into Armenia. A couple rounds later at Monaco, Hartley was already on the back foot, having qualified at the rear of the grid, while Gasly had gotten into Q3. People were already speculating as to how long he was going to last in Formula 1, and apparently there was some truth to the rumours. Some of the higher-ups at Red Bull wanted him gone, which really sucks. I mean, I've given shit to a lot of drivers on this channel, but saying that a driver should be dropped only after a few races? Come on people, give them a little bit more time. And then pour shit on them. Having climbed up a few positions during the Grand Prix, Hartley was running in P11 with a handful of laps to go, being hounded by the Alfa Romeo of Charles Leclerc. But this is Monaco. It ain't too hard to keep someone behind. Wait. Oh no, oh god. And to add salt to the wounds, he was given a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pits. In Canada, he put on a very good performance in qualifying, thrusting himself into the mid-pack and ahead of Gasly. His start was a little garbage, but there was a long race ahead, although he would take no further part in it after getting sideswiped by Sir Lancelot at turn 5. 2 races in a row where he's eliminated from the Grand Prix through no fault of his own. But it did seem that Chris Amon's luck had passed on to this lad. It seemed like nothing was going right for him. And after these aero stunts which were caused by suspension failure, he would complete only 1 lap in the race before mechanical failures forced him back into the pits. And although he got some points in Germany, he was starting to be out-qualified by Gasly on the regular. The questions over his future were ramping up. In Hungary, he finally broke through to Q3 in qualifying, putting himself on the 4th row of the grid, although he would finish the race in P11. A fair way behind Gasly. A pincer movement at Monza forced him out of the race early, and the brakes on both Toro Rossos failed at Sochi at the very same time. Hartley couldn't buy luck at this rate, but at Suzuka, he would qualify in P6, ahead of Gasly, which was a brilliant performance when all was said and done. Although, neither of them would score points during the race, so kind of immaterial. Points would come available at the next race in Austin, finishing in P9 ahead of his teammate. For the remainder of the year, however, he failed to score any more points. In his defense, Gasly wasn't that much further up the road. It wasn't a comprehensive, one-sided battering that some may have remembered it to be, but in the eyes of Marco, it wasn't good enough. Despite out-qualifying Gasly and finishing in P12 for the final round at Abu Dhabi, Hartley was called into a meeting after the Grand Prix and was told that he wouldn't be in Toro Rosso next year, and it seemed they were keen to get rid of him for quite a while. But after Toro Rosso replaced him with Alex Albon for the 2019 season, the Formula 1 dream for Hartley was over. And with all that we went over in his time leading up to and during the sport, how was his time in Formula 1? Well, honestly, it wasn't amazing. I'll be lying if I said that I changed my mind and thought that he was going to be the next Aiden Jackson and that he was going to put Max Verstappen on his ass and win 89 million world championships. Because he wasn't that driver. But in retrospect, he didn't do a bad job in the time and circumstances given. In the end, it worked out for the greater good. He won Le Mans again. He's winning on the WEC scene, and above all else, he was a Formula 1 driver. But the most impressive thing of all, he finally achieved what almost everyone thought was to be impossible. He overcame his fear and finally got a fucking haircut.
Boo! You suck!
Anyways, thank you all for watching. Drop a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you're awesome, and always remember, keep it respectful, be wholesome, don't be a manus, and as always, I'll see you all later.